Welcome to this introduction to File Transfer Protocol, commonly known as FTP. File Transfer Protocol is a standard network protocol used to transfer files between a client and a server over the internet or a local network. In this video, we will explore what FTP is, how it works, and its common use cases. FTP is a standard network protocol for transferring files between a client and a server on a computer network. It was developed in the early 1970s and remains widely used to this day. FTP operates on a client-server model. The client initiates a connection to the server and then can upload, download, or manage files on the server. It uses two separate channels, one for commands and another for data transfer. The command channel uses port 21 and the data channel uses port 20. The client has three components: user interface, client control process, client data transfer process. The server has two components: server control process, server data transfer process. The control connection is made between control process. The data connection is made between the data transfer process. The control connection remains connected during the entire interactive FTP session. The data connection is opened and then closed for each file transferred. It opens each time commands that involving transfer files are used and it closes when the file is transferred. In other words, when a user initiates an FTP session, the control connection is established. While the control connection is open, the data connection can be opened and closed multiple times if several files are transferred. The two FTP connections, control and data, use different strategies and different port numbers. Here is a simplified version of how FTP creates a data connection using the steps you provided. First, the client initiates the process by opening an temporary port on its end. This is done so the server knows where the data to send. In the second step, the client then tells the server about this port by sending the port command, which includes the port number it's using. Finally, the server receives the client's port number and establishes the connection. It does this by opening its port and establishing a connection to the client's temporary port. File Transfer Protocol uses the same communication approach as Telnet and SMTP for its control connection. It relies on the NBT ASCII character set to ensure consistent data representation between systems. Communication takes place through a simple exchange of commands and responses. This method is efficient and enough because only one command or response is sent at a time. Each message is a single short line, making it unnecessary to handle complex file formats or structures during control communication. Every line is properly terminated using a two-character end of line token, carriage, return, and line feed, ensuring smooth and standardized communication between the client and the server. In FTP, the data connection serves a different purpose and is implemented separately from the control connection. While the control connection handles commands and responses, the data connection is responsible for transferring files between the client and the server. Before any file transfer begins, the client specifies three important attributes: the type of file, the data structure, and the transmission mode. These settings ensure that both systems understand how the data should be sent and received. All preparations for the file transfer are made through the control connection, and once everything is set, the actual file transmission takes place over the data connection. This approach helps solve the heterogeneity problem, allowing different computer systems with varying file formats and architectures to communicate and exchange data smoothly. FTP uses the control connection to establish a communication between the client control process and the server control process. During this communication, the commands are sent from the client to the server and the responses are sent from the server to the client. Commands which are sent from the FTP client control process are in the form of ASCII uppercase, which may or may not be followed by an argument. Commands are divided into six groups: access commands, file management commands, data formatting commands, port defining commands, file transferring commands, and miscellaneous commands. In FTP, different types of commands are used to manage communication and file operations. Access commands are used to connect and interact with the remote system. For example, logging in, logging out, and changing user credentials. On the other hand, file management commands are used to access and control the file systems on the remote computer. This includes actions like creating, deleting, renaming, or transferring files and directories. In FTP, data formatting commands are used to specify how data should be represented and structured during transfer. They define important details such as file type, data structure, and transmission mode, ensuring that files are correctly interpreted on both the client and server sides, regardless of differences in their operating systems. Port defining commands, on the other hand, are used to set up the communication pathway for the data connection. These commands specify the port number, network address where the client or server will send or receive the actual file data. In FTP, file transfer commands are used to send or receive the files between the client and the servers. These commands handle actions like uploading, downloading, appending, or retrieving files, forming the core of the FTP file exchange process. Meanwhile, the miscellaneous commands are used to provide additional information to the user at the client side. They help display messages, confirm actions, or share details about the status of the connection or file operations. In FTP, responses are messages sent by the server to the client to indicate the status of a command or action. These responses include a 3-digit status code followed by a human readable message which helps the client understand what happened with the request. The first digit defines the status of the command. One of the 5 digits can be used in this position. The second digit in the reply code further defines the status of the command. It can be one of the 6 possible digits, each representing a specific type of response, such as connection issues, syntax errors, or authentication results. The third digit provides additional details about the response, giving more precise information about what occurred during communication. Together, these digits help both the client and the server clearly understand the outcome of each command and take the appropriate next action. File transfer occurs over the data connection under the control of the commands sent over the control connection. A file is to be copied from the server to the client. This is called retrieving a file. It is done under the supervision of the RETR command. A file is copied from the client to the server. This is called storing a file. It is done under the supervision of the STOR command. A list of directory or file names is to be sent from the server to the client. This is done under the supervision of the list command. Note that FTP treats a list of directory or file name as a file. It is sent over the data connection. FTP can be configured to record user authentication, typically via a username and password. However, traditional FTP is not encrypted, meaning sensitive data can be exposed. For secure transfers, FTP over SSL, TLS, or secure file transfer protocol is recommended.